Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Scott K. I'm not sure I have seen many keyboards come from our culture friends beyond the Atlantic Ocean, or maybe never. Until today, the Fragment TKL, and what a keyboard this is. I know the concept of like an endgame keyboard. It's a moving goalpost, right? It changes all the time. But every once in a while, a keyboard does show up though, where to somebody somewhere will most likely be their final keyboard. Well, let's get to it then. So the Fragment is a 10 keyless layout keyboard from Abunchofnumbers, the designer behind the previous Quantum 60 in the past. At first glance, you're like, oh joy, a keyboard isn't it? But as I got into it, I realized what this was, a potential endgame level unit. Oh no, I said the no-no word, but let me show you. Right off the bat, the Fragment carries itself like a bloke walking out of a clothier on Savile Row in bespoke dress robes. It has an air of elevation to it. Yes, the finish is top notch, and the silver anno I have here is rich people smooth with a glisten to match. But the cream on the top hat is actually the utilization of various different high-end materials. Take a look at how the aluminum fraternizes with the walnut. If walnut is your arbor of choice, then oak is also on offer. Then you have the accents, right? In this situation, a resin and wood split combo that is quite tastefully done. Finally, there are so many little details in the Fragment that kind of shows that the overall design intent as well as the complexity that differentiates this from the standard mass market kits out there. Hard to explain, but it's like the vibe this keyboard kind of gives off that says, away from me, you commoner. Starting at around $340 and customized to $545 definitely has a price to go along with that attitude as well. Now, it can't be all looks alone. Oh no, one of the main highlights of the Fragment is actually how it mounts. It's a plateless PCB mounted O-ring. Yes, you heard that right. Kind of similar to the predecessor, the Quantum 60. The Fragment uses a specially designed O-ring that allows you to go plateless without like sandwiching the O-ring between the plate and the PCB. The O-ring fits right into the bottom of the PCB like this and further floats on gaskets in the case. This yields a fantastically light and soft typing experience, but doesn't run into the problem of some of the other plateless builds. The sound still remains very true, like this. I mean, if you prefer the more solidness of a plated build, you can also do that as well. The Fragment has the option to take on 4 different plate choices from like the soft polypropylene, the usual polycarbonate, the classic aluminium, and the favorite, and my favorite actually, the stiffer carbon fiber. If you do choose to go with the plate, then you can either keep it O-ring mounted or go with the floating top mount as well, where the plate actually doesn't make direct contact with the upper case. It uses these little spacers, so it kind of like floats. The overall internals of the Fragment is also very traditional, as many Brits can be. So the plates are solid plates, right? No flex cuts or anything fancy like that in any way. Similar concept for the PCB as well. It's a good old solid 1.6mm PCB that comes in both the traditional solder or the convenient KO hot swap models. No, there is no wireless or anything of that sort to mess around with, or lighting or anything like that. However, it is a modern keyboard too, so it'll support customization through options like VIA. So you're not losing everything. One thing you may have noticed, the Fragment doesn't come with any foam. No, it's not because I'm a supposed foam hater. It's because foam is for commoners and this keyboard won't have it. I'm just kidding. It doesn't need it because it was designed to sound really good without relying on fillers or fillers to kind of reduce like, some of the imperfections. However, I did, and I also suggested to the designer to implement some sort of force break between the lower and the uppercase to totally eliminate any uppercase reverb that might happen if you're raging on your keyboard. Now, I know that you have heard a previous Fragment sound clip earlier, but let me show you how I actually built this guy out. So, given the variety of mounting options, I did do it 3 different ways. First one is probably the most important, right? Since it's what makes the Fragment unique. It's the plateless O-ring mount. For this, out of the 3 different O-rings I did receive, I did use the black one, which I felt was the stiffest and I liked the best. Given the classic nature of the keyboard, I did pull out some matching switches to go along with it from the archives, the Cherry MX Hyperglide Blacks. Yes, I know, these are scratchy. They also have a classic mid-high sound profile that we all know and love, I think. The installation is easy. The keyboard is held together by internally facing screws facing 45 degrees for ease of access. With the O-rings and the small gaskets installed, you just connect the single cable and then just kind of drop it in like this right here. Then you install and you move to the keycaps, which I also went with a similarly classic colorway, some DCX 9009s. Overall, the keyboard came out looking so classy in my opinion, and yes, the light typing feel I was talking about before. This has to be, I think, one of the softest feeling keyboards I have tested to date in this configuration. It's not a bouncy keyboard, it's not like springy. It just feels crazy dampened, and the sound? Well, let's go into it a little bit more in detail. The keyboard sounds great even in this foamless, plateless configuration. It doesn't sound thin at all or dead. It's a nice and like medium clacky sound that I do typically see in like usually higher end boards overall. Now, let's try the other mounts then too, shall we? Okay, so for the second rendition, I am going to throw a plate on here, but stick with the same O-ring mount in this situation. For the plate, I decided to go with the carbon fiber plate because I like it and I tend to gravitate towards that sound profile. Not much changes here with the exception of just the plate, right? It looks like this overall. As you'd expect, the overall feel does stiffen up a tiny bit, but honestly, the Fragment with the O-rings is a soft keyboard regardless. Then what about the sound? As you'd expect, adding the plate does change the sound to make, in my opinion, a little bit more full. You're now channeling some of that typing energy into the carbon fiber plate, which then reverberates and produces noise as well. Overall, I think I prefer having the plate installed. The feel, it's not compromised much, it's still very soft and dampened and comfortable, but to my ears, the sound is even more pleasing and I feel it's a little bit more refined as well. Okay, just for fun though, let's try out that floating top mount build. For this, remember to use these little spacers provided because it's kind of like floating. The top mount configuration, it's definitely less flex and has a more traditional keyboard feel, right? But with most top mounts, you do still get some give, which does help to dampen the keystroke. So it's not like a crazy like integrated plated keyboard. But what about the sound? A more traditional top mount sound, very direct, heavier sound profile like this in my opinion, and more reminiscent of some of the great keyboards of yesteryear. In the sea of screened out, lit up, and wireless keyboards that are coming out these days, the Fragment really was a breath of expensive fresh air. It focused on just being a premium, classy keyboard that does things right. And in that, I feel that it can be considered a potential endgame level keyboard to someone. The resin and wood is actually handmade in the UK, adding to the bespoken feel overall, which means like no two Fragments also will be alike. Plus, with like 7,200 configuration options, I'm pretty sure you can make a unique one that's just very specific to you. While it does utilize some components from China, the finishing, the customization, and the fulfillment happens from the UK, if that kind of stuff matters to you at all. Given all this, I would say if you're looking for a classy, elevated, and well-performing keyboard made by our friends in the UK, the possibly $545 Fragment can be your endgame keyboard that will probably age very well, like a classic Aston Martin or Jaguar from the past. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.